This video will demonstrate plein air painting, this time painting from full color. I'll be looking directly into my environment and pulling colors that I see, mixing up complex neutrals, and laying them in. Some important concepts to remember are treating your ground with a transparent tone when you begin, which will give your overall painting a sense of vibrance that will seep through the later on layers of your painting. I'm also going to be beginning with an underpainting, which will allow me to create a general roadmap of the basic shapes and how my composition will work. So that way, as I build up color and shadow and color and light, I already have my composition sorted out. I'll also be working from back to front and from general to specific, which will allow me to hone in on the overall relationships between the shapes and values and colors, while at the same time creating successful figure-ground relationships by building one foregrounded shape on top of the things that are more in the background. That's going to create almost automatic depth by working from back to front. When I'm thinking from general to specific, I'm going to be laying in the biggest shapes of color and value first, and then layering in more detail as I build up that composition as a whole. I'm beginning my painting process by mixing up a bunch of colors that I see. So as I look out into the landscape that I'm painting, I'm seeing a lot of really complex neutral tones. I'm seeing a lot of earth tones, while at the same time, each one of those earth tones or neutral tones is leaning in one way or another towards some kind of color. So when I look out into this landscape, there's a lot of really complex purples and blues that are created by the atmospheric perspective of the distant mountains and the clouds. While at the same time, there's also a ton of variety to the green tones that I'm seeing. So I'm not going to be painting with any green tones straight out of the tube, but instead I'm going to be adding in various tones, sometimes complementary tones like reds or oranges, in order to match the specific, more neutralized greens that I'm really seeing out in the environment. So I have my ground treated with some transparent yellow paint. Feel free to decide to treat your canvas with whatever kind of color you want. Adding a little bit of arbitrary color to the underpainting can add a ton of vibrance later on, and it can be a really fun experience and experiment to see how that tone affects your other tones that you layer on top. And then I'm working from back to front. So I've gone ahead and I'm really just trying to establish the most basic shapes and the basic relationships between those shapes of the sky, the distant mountains, and then the layers of land that come in front. Keep in mind that when we're painting from life, especially from landscape, that we're compressing space into one image. This means that we have to be making decisions about what exactly we're going to include and what we're going to omit. One of the most important things to remember is that instead of painting each specific object in the landscape, we are trying to capture the light. We're trying to capture how is light and shadow generally being cast on the space in front of me. Squinting your eyes and trying to reduce what you're seeing to just shapes of color, shapes of value is really important. This allows us to almost look at our landscape or look at our world as if it's completely new. This can be a really exciting way to kind of change our relationship to the spaces around us, to make us more observant, but it will also teach us so much about color, because the color in the world around us is all about light. It's all about shadow. And it is so incredibly complex that every time you make a painting from life, you're going to hopefully kind of see your world in a more vibrant way next time you look at it. So when something in front of you is gray or brown, really ask yourself, what colors are making this very specific kind of gray or this very specific kind of brown? Really seeing the ways in which purples or blues or reds or yellows or oranges are seeping into those neutral tones are what's going to give your painting life. So I'm working in a way where I've really decided to make this tree on the right, especially because it's the most foregrounded object, I've decided to exaggerate its color and make it this really vibrant red. And so this, I think, is even more effective because I've been really trying to match the tones that I see almost exactly in the rest of the composition, which allows this one foregrounded object to feel even closer to the viewer. Because generally, colors that are more saturated are going to come forward, and tones that are more neutralized and closer to one another in value will recede in space with atmospheric perspective. But also notice how I've created depth by making it so that my shapes and my brush strokes are larger as they get closer to the viewer. So this tree, which is really close to the viewer, has the largest shape of one color. I've also used a relatively large brush in order to capture the texture of the bark on this ponderosa pine. I haven't gone into too much detail, but instead I'm just creating a suggestion of the textures and the layers of space on the bark that I'm seeing. This was just a 45-minute painting session on this painting, but you're welcome to return to the same place for multiple days if you would like, or limit yourself to one really nice painting session. But keep in mind that mistakes are bound to happen. The world in front of us is so incredibly complex and beautiful that us capturing it exactly is next to impossible. This can be kind of liberating because it means that our interpretation of what we're seeing is really where the art is. So when we make a mistake or when something unexpected happens, think about it as part of the process. Maybe it's an exciting problem to solve, or maybe it just adds to the vibrance of your work. So keep in mind that the imperfections in your painting are just a part of your process, and they're what makes your work interesting and exciting. So good luck with your plein air painting projects. I can't wait to see what you make, and take care. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.